part. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I welcome you all to Education Series Webinar 1 that's being held under the platform of Learners Republic. Purpose of this webinar is to discuss single national curriculum, clarify any ambiguities, to highlight discrepancies, if any, in the proposed single national curriculum. In 2006, curriculum was developed when education was on the Constitution's concurrent list. However, after 18th Amendment, education has been devolved to provinces. But effort to maintain national cohesion with cultural diversity through educational means remains federation's sought-after goal. For that matter, National Curriculum Council was set up by all federating units, and that serves to develop national curriculum framework in consultation with all stakeholders. As we know that Pakistan has three different streams of education system. One is public sector, other is private sector, and then we have Madaris. Single national curriculum has been developed by National Curriculum Council after consulting all stakeholders, including Wafaqul Madaris, private sector, and all other federating units. Single national curriculum serves to set bare minimum standards for all three streams. Today, in this webinar, we plan to discuss technical aspects of single national curriculum, how it has been developed, and how it is going to transform Pakistan into a developed modern society and developed economy. We have in our panel Dr. Fatma Dar, who works as Director, Center for Teaching Excellence and Learning Innovation at Iqra University. Dr. Fatma has been working in the field of teacher education curriculum development for past 25 years. She has done her master's in curriculum and teaching from Columbia University and PhD from School of Education and Cognitive Science, Malaysia. Dr. Fatma has vast experience working with various organizations like FAST, Aga Khan University, Beacon House National University, Virtual University, Zabis. She has consulted with firms like Adam Smith International, McKinsey, USAID, DFID, Sindh Capacity Development Project, Society for Advancement of Education, and many others. She has also written extensively on teacher education, curriculum development, and English education. Second speaker in our panel is Mr. Abdul Sami Khan. Mr. Sami has 25 years of experience in public policy. He is a Fulbright scholar and has a degree in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University. He has specialization in education policy, planning, and has been working on national education policy in Pakistan. And there were some other various education sector plans. Mr. Sami has been part of research on school teachers, examination results, connections between employment and education. He has vast experience of working with international development partners, evaluation of donor-funded projects. He's currently leading an education sector plan development in Balochistan and has been an advisor to programs in other provinces also. Third speaker in our panel is Mr. Rafiq Tahir. He has not been able to join. However, he's currently Joint Educational Advisor and National Curriculum Council and DG Directorate of Religious Education and Professional Training. Before starting formally, I would share structure and few rules of this webinar. This webinar shall consist of 3 sessions, 15 minutes each. Audience may pose their questions during the sessions, and those shall be asked at the end of each session. First session shall particularly address single national curriculum and how differently it is from previous single national curriculums. Session 2 shall focus on single national curriculum building process. And session 3, that is the last session, shall focus on implementation process of single national curriculum in the settings of Pakistan, which has different units and has a diversity across the region. I would start my today's discussion by asking Dr. Fatma that holistically, how do we define curriculum? And because curriculum is the blueprint that is derived from the desired results. So, what is curriculum and what steps are involved in this?
Thank you very much, Ravakasa, and thank you very much for a very generous introduction. This is a very critical topic, and I'm really thankful to you and your team for organizing this session. Curriculum, as we define it, is a huge concept, and unfortunately, a slightly when we talk about a curriculum is usually based on your future. And it also, when we try to define a at the outset, at the methodology, the activities and learning experiences that learners may have, and it goes on to defining the textbooks and all the assessment procedures that might become part of this whole process. So when we take the name curriculum, this is a huge concept in itself, a huge entity, I would say, in which there are various subunits. However, I would explain on to say that curriculum actually connects it to the different approaches. So, as I'm saying, these are all like chain reactions, starting from the vision, going on to the development of policy, going on to I initially I said it is a hugely misunderstood concept because you see it may have different definitions. So when we are talking about curriculum, we as a nation and as educationists, we need to also see what to mean by the word curriculum. Are we talking about a plan of achieving certain goals,
Yes, sorry, I think we are losing Dr. Fatma because of the internet problem. So we have in our panel Tahir Rafiq Saab. He has been working on curriculum development and he has been involved with all the stakeholders. So I would ask Rafiq Tahir sir about what has been the process of curriculum development, what is all involved in this, and how this curriculum is different from the previous single national curriculums. I would request Rafiq sir to take 5 to 6 minutes to explain everything so that we can continue the discussion further.
I'm sorry because I joined late because of this some technology issue. Uh, I I'll start from this that this is basically the vision of the the Prime Minister Imran Khan to have a single national curriculum in Pakistan. In Pakistan, previously we have the national curriculum, but not the single national curriculum. A national curriculum only meant for the public school mostly, and some of the low-cost private school adopt that, and some of the madaras also that was adopted, but it was not the one curriculum for the country. Three stream at the moment in the country working in the education sector. One is the public sector, which is almost 96% of the total, and the remaining madaris and the elite school, they are doing 6% almost. These three streams have the different curricula and the different destinations. So our Prime Minister aspiration was that let's introduce one single national curriculum in the country. We started this work around 2 years back, and we divided our work in three phases. In phase one, we have decided that we will develop the first phase curriculum pre 1 to 5. This is the sixth class curriculum, and almost it took 1.5 years to reach at the final stage. Objective we what we have set for us when we started development of the single national curriculum, that was that all the children have the fair and the equal opportunity to receive high quality education. Social cohesion and the national integration is the one of the objective for SNC, and the equal opportunity for the upward social mobility. Equity in education again is a big challenge in the country. Holistic development of the children, that is the another, you see, our priority and objective, so that we just keep in the mind the international and the global trend and the national realities, and we go for the holistic development of the children. Then we have the smooth inter-provincial mobility for the teacher student. You see, this is the federation, and people go from one province to other. So when they go, there should not be any problem. These are the few objectives, and then we have decided our certain key consideration for this curriculum. As being the Islamic country, our base was the that on this is again the Prime Minister's vision, that this curriculum must be based on the teaching of the Quran and Sunnah. We must take care of the vision of the Qaid and Iqbal. Constitutional framework is the one of the main key consideration also. National policies, alignment with the international commitment like SDG 4 and others. Emerging international trend was the key consideration in the single national curriculum, and outcome-based approach, focus on the value, life skill-based education, inclusive education, respect and the appreciation for the different culture, religion in the local and the global context. So these was the basically key consideration, and we were focusing on the activity-based learning, project-based learning, try to move away from the rote memorization, which is already unfortunately exists in our setup in the system. 21st century skills was the again part of this SNC, and use of information technology. That is, you can see in our curriculum, which will be available after a few days on the website. This was again focus, and the last but not the least, we try to align our science curriculum and math curriculum with the TIMS, because this is the first time in Pakistan history that our student appeared in the TIMS assessment with the other student of the world. So we said that our curriculum must be aligned in future so that our students have all the opportunity. As I told, three phases. First phase is completed. Most crucial is time, because after 18 amendment was that how we can go for the development process. Very long marathon, because you have just allocated few minutes, so I'll just very brief. we developed a zero draft at Islamabad with the help of the national experts, and then that zero draft was the share with the four all federating units. We shared this with the uh, our areas education department, shared with the private sector people, even shared with the Cambridge also, and we asked them for the input on the zero draft. So, as a marathon thing happened in the provinces, all provinces took almost 3 months. Kent and Garrison, you can see this army public schools. So all everybody have received that the zero draft, and they start studying and deliberating on that. And after 3 months, every province has organized a 4 day curriculum workshop or a curriculum conference, provincial conference, and all eight subject pre 1 to 5 was discussed, and very in detail. You see, they have deliberated in that, and all experts, teacher, and everybody is a part of that. Finally, we received the input from all four federating unit, the two areas also, Kent and Garrison school system. Then we have the some input because we have the shared this curriculum with the Khan University. Khan, they are Institute of Educational Development. They are working with us in this curriculum. They are helping us, supporting us for the value addition in this curriculum. They are going to develop for us the teacher training module, assessment framework on this curriculum. So this we have hired the services of the Khan through open competitive process, and LAMS is also involved with us. And you see, when the zero draft we shared with the Cambridge again took 3 months, and they have given the excellent, valuable input on science, mathematics, and English language curricula. So after having this input from all the sector, all the stakeholder, a conference held here at Islamabad in Feb. 11 to 14, 4 days, national conference on the curriculum. And then again, all the you see the experts from four provinces, areas, Kent and Garrison, all private schools, almost big chains, they are experts, the part of that. Even the madaris, that ITMP people are the part of that for Islamic studies curricula. They stay here in Islam for 4 days, debated, deliberated, and finally at the end of the 4 day, they have agreed on a curriculum and signed by all the experts from all the provinces.
Rafiq Sab, I think we are losing you. Thank you very much for detailing everything included in a single national curriculum. Dr. Fatma has joined us back. So I would request Dr. Fatma to kindly repeat for the sake of audience and just tell us that holistically how we define curriculum, because curriculum is considered to be a blueprint for everything we want to see in our nation. So what is a curriculum? What steps are in it? Kindly brief or tell audience what it is. Thank you.
Gee, sorry for the technical glitch. I have switched on to another network. So I really did not know that I was not heard. Anyway, you see, what I was saying was that it is very important to build a consensus regarding what a curriculum is. You see, every curriculum starts with an educational vision. You see, every country needs to have a broad national vision, which is translated in the form of an educational policy and then translated in the form of a framework. And when you build the definition of a curriculum, you need to build it on a certain approach. You see, as a student of curriculum, you see, what I have seen and what I have read and what I have taught is that every curriculum follows a particular approach. Every country follows a particular approach in curriculum building. For example, whether it is a behavioral approach, where the model is built on efficiency, which means that there are set standards, there are set learning goals and objectives which students have to accomplish. Or are we saying that we are following a systems approach in curriculum development, which means that we are talking about various structures in terms of curriculum development, design, and again the kind of objectives again would come in that. So systems approach again is an offshoot of behavioral approach. At the same time, there are some recent developments in curriculum approaches, and which is going on with an integrated approach, where the humanistic part of curriculum also is now offered with the cognitive curriculum. So what I'm trying to say is that holistically, you need to first build a definition of what a curriculum is, because when you talk about a curriculum, you are not just talking about certain standards. You are talking about your goals of education. You are talking about your content, your organization. You are talking about the whole phenomenon of going on from aims to objectives to student learning outcomes, and at the same time, the aspect of pedagogy, the aspect of assessment, the aspect of educational organization and administration. All of this becomes part of a curriculum. So one needs to understand that a curriculum is a very broad, very holistic concept. However, for that, you need to build it on a certain vision. You need to build it on, number one, what are your societal needs? Your curriculum needs to be built on what your society needs. So, which means it needs to be contextualized. So that is something which is extremely important. The other thing is that your curriculum is not just made for the present, it is made for the future. And at the same time, what we need to understand is that it is built on a value system. So if all of this thing needs to be reflected in our goals of education, in the content that we have, in the methodology, in the organization that we offer, whether it has to do with your educational culture, it has to do with the brick and mortar, everything needs to reflect it. So curriculum is a very, very holistic concept. And one needs to distinguish as to what we mean by a curriculum. As I said earlier, we need to define for ourselves as to what we mean by the word curriculum. And because it entails so many things. In most of the areas where I have worked, is curriculum is a misguided, sometimes misinterpreted concept, in which syllabus is regarded as a curriculum. In some cases, textbooks are regarded as a curriculum. In some cases, only goals and objectives are regarded, or SLOs are regarded as a curriculum. So this is something that we need to focus on and arrive at at a national level. So the definition of a curriculum, I have explained that this is what it entails. And then we need to remember that a curriculum is a fluid document. A curriculum is not a document, which is a very copious document, and which is, set on our table, and then which we refer to. It is a reference document. However, it is a fluid document because, it accommodates all the recent and the global changes that are happening. And because you see, the context needs also to match the global realities. So this in a nutshell is, what a curriculum is. For me, what is most important as a student of curriculum, what is most important is that as a nation, what curriculum approach are we following? Because you see, many changes have been foreseen in different countries, in different contexts, where they work on different approaches. Whether it's a behavioral approach, it is a managerial approach, it is a system-based approach, where systems are very important. If it is a behavioral approach, then learning objectives and goals are important. Or whether it is a humanistic approach, where where the cognitive realities are integrated with the demands of the personal social development. And this is something which is the slogan today in many developed as well as developing countries. So this is again something that we need to define for ourselves as a nation. We need to arrive at the definition of the curriculum, and most importantly, we need to link it with our policy. A curriculum comes from a certain policy. A curriculum needs to emerge from your vision, from your policies, from the different curriculum frameworks that we have set. So this for me is a curriculum, and this for me is a concept which is very holistic in nature, and which needs to be contextualized based on the needs of a particular society.
So thank you very much, Dr. Fatma. From your observation, what I can make out is that a curriculum has to be a curriculum that makes our citizens global citizens of the world with all the interpersonal, intrapersonal, ethical, and knowledge skills. And that's very important for Pakistan to stand in the community of nations in 21st century. Mr. Sami, I would ask you that what are the needs of modern and developed society vis-a-vis industrial, economic, and pluralistic societal need for next 20 years? Is single national curriculum, the curriculum we are Pakistan is developing, is relevant to address those needs? I think you're mute.
Sorry about that. I was so engrossed listening to both the participants' discussions that I forgot. Thank you, Waqas, and thank you, Dr. Fatma and Rafiq Saab, for being part of this panel. I'll start with reference to Pakistan, and I'll start with something that you said and something that Rafiq Saab said, and said that there are three different systems in Pakistan. I beg to differ. There are more than three systems. Within the private school system, we have multiple systems. You see, a school which charges 200 rupees cannot be equated with a school which charges 1,000 rupees, cannot be equated with a school that charges 5,000 rupees, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple layers of private schools. There are multiple layers of madrasas. Manoria Madrasa is one example in Karachi. A small madrasa in Dora Lai for the benefit of the local cleric is a completely different example. There are differences within public schools. There are schools which are model schools. Rafiq Saab knows this. He's been a professor in some of the best public schools in the country. Then there are small rural schools. There are cadet colleges. All of these are public schools. There are elite public schools. There are average public schools. So what we are looking at is a very multiple set of education parallel systems. So in that sense, having uniform education system appears to be a very desirable outcome, and nobody can disagree with that. I would rather say that we would look at some set of basic standard education outcomes for everyone. Something that the SNC is talking about. Rafiq Saab said about giving equal opportunities to everyone. Now, my take on that is that SNC is not the answer. We already had two very good documents produced at the national level. One is the minimal national standards for quality education, and the other is the national curriculum framework. Now, they have provided enough of a broader framework and a direction. The moment you talk about a single national curriculum, you are assuming that all children who start school are at the same level of development, which is not true in Pakistan. Unlike some of the more developed countries where they have reached a basic benchmark, although even in very developed countries sometimes, depending on each education system, they provide a lot of flexibility for local changes in curricula, even to the extent that in very advanced systems where teacher quality is very high, even school level curricula are developed. But what we're talking about in Pakistan is there's so much diversity, to capture it in a single curriculum would be impossible, I would say. So what we have to think about is not in terms of, we have to agree with the basic concept, but we have to think about in terms of how to reach that. Is the single national curriculum answer, or do we need multiple curricular paths to reach the same objective? The second thing about globalization and industrialization, nobody can disagree with that. We need to develop as a country. We need to industrialize. We need to have economic growth. We need to engage with the globe. But let us take a step back and look at where our education problem right now is. Our education problem is that children cannot read and write. That's a very fundamental, basic issue. And that is where the diversity issue also comes into play. Why can't the majority of Pakistani children not read and write? There are many issues that the curriculum needs to address in terms of getting the children started. Taking the children where you want to take is going to be the next step, third step, fourth step. May take you 10 years, 15 years. But the point is, how does the curriculum make sure that the children that are included in Pakistani schools, irrespective of where they are in that vast variety, how do you accommodate them? How do you meet the child where the child is? That is the key. And not every child is at the same point. I'll just leave this particular response here, unless you want me to add something, and then we can go on to further discussion.
Yeah, Semisub, I would come back to you again. Dr. Fatma and Semisub have posed some very important questions that need to be answered. So I would request Rafiq Tahir Saab to kindly address the issues which have been highlighted. I think there's some problem on the side of technical side. With this, we come to the end of session one. Till now, I do not have any questions from the audience, so we'll be moving ahead to session two. Session two is the single national curriculum building process, where we would see that how single national curriculum has been built, because we have been told that there are 400 different stakeholders involved in this process. But Rafiq Tahir Saab can further explain that who all were involved. The important thing is that what Semisub has highlighted, that there are schools in private sector also, there are schools which are not as good as the expensive schools, and even madrasas are different within. So we would see that if those stakeholders have been catered for, I would ask Dr. Fatma that as an expert on curriculum development, what are the technical strengths, structural deficiencies you find in such single national curriculum with whatever draft is available, and if you find the deficiencies, what could have been done to address those deficiencies?
देखिए वकास साहब, I think that I partially answered your question. My problem is again with the word curriculum, so I would want to clarify further vis-a-vis the document whether it should be called a curriculum at all, because as I explained earlier, a curriculum is a huge entity. So my personal opinion is that this is a document which actually states what the standards are, what the benchmarks are, and what the student learning outcomes are, which is a partial part of the curriculum. So first of all, my reaction to the word in itself is that. Now, talking about some structural issues with the curriculum, my first question again would be, you say, I'm unable to decipher as to how different is this from the 2006 curriculum. I have worked on this and I have been part of textbook making also, in the past. So, and I would specifically talk in terms of the English curriculum because that has been my domain. So, and I will talk about the technical aspects. So for me, and this was my, previous reaction to the 2006 curriculum also, that this is a very dense curriculum. You see, when you look at language development, you need to first of all see again, which approach are you following in terms of teaching language? Like the first thing is that language is a skill and not a subject. It has to be dealt with like a skill and not a subject. So this is something which evidence-based research suggests that it needs to be taught as a skill. Now, I am afraid, that the curriculum, is highly structure-based. And Semisub has highlighted the different systems very rightly so, that there are not just 3 systems, but several systems. So how is it going to cater to those where there are students who are unable to speak or write not only English, but Urdu also? So when we look at, the provincial realities, you need to see, the language itself. So again, how are they going to cope with it? I'm really not sure. This was my reaction with the previous curriculum also. It is highly dense. It is very copious. And first of all, you need to decide again that what is the approach in teaching English. Again, it is not a subject. It is a skill, whether it is Urdu, whether it is English. So this needs to be dealt with accordingly. So, with my meager background in language instruction, that is my first reaction. Then again, I would again try to see, establish the link between this SNC and the policy that was made previously, and the national curriculum framework. So we need to see again, with my background in curriculum, I cannot see the link. So the link needs to be established. So that is my other reaction. Then again, my other question is that how is this curriculum accommodating the recent trends that are practiced globally, or what the world is thinking? For example, I've recently attended several conferences in which they are talking about the fourth industrial revolution and accommodating those principles in the school, college, university curricula. For example, what people around the globe are suggesting that, on an average, 80 million jobs will go away in the next 10 years. However, 120 million jobs will be created, but that would require a different skill set. So my question is that, are we addressing that problem? So people are now talking about artificial intelligence, big data, analysis, and at the same time, they are talking about all those digital literacies which need to be accommodated across the curriculum. So again, I fail to see that part addressed, in the curriculum, since it is recently made. So and these talks at different educational forums have now been going on for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So this again. This is again something which needs to be done. Now, apart from that, my again worry is that how are we addressing the other parts of the curriculum in this, which means that in terms of looking at the methodology part, there are chapters on methodologies, on assessments. However, I would again say that they need to be addressed in a much in a much more reflective as well as in a much more practical manner. Right now, again, it prescribes. So you see, it prescribes certain. It's very prescriptive. For example, there is a section on in assessment which talks about the validity and reliability part. And in reliability, the very first sentence, says that teachers need to ensure, while developing assessments, inter-rater reliability, and at the same time retest reliability. Now, at the university level, when we teach MPhil PhD students, this concept is very difficult to give them. So we have written it as the first sentence under the heading of the reliability section. So I'm not sure how will teachers belonging to the different sectors, which Semisub has pointed out, how are they going to decipher these terms? So do we have any plan for that? So, these are some issues that I find with the curriculum. And then, my other concern is the medium of instruction. This is again a huge domain which would require maybe another session. But what importance are we giving to the regional languages in the curriculum? Are we accommodating that? So these are some issues, structural issues that I find with the curriculum. Yes, it has shown a very good progression. On a positive note, a very good progression from grade 1 to grade 5 in terms of development. Again, this progression looks very fine on a piece of paper, but again, will the students belonging to different sections of the society, will they be able to handle this? Will the teachers be able to handle it, where a huge majority of our teachers are deficient in languages themselves? So these are some of the structural issues that I can think of, and that while I was going through the single national curriculum, these were some issues that I found, again, from my angle as an academic. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I can understand that there's a huge difference in writing a curriculum and to implement and then get desired results. So I would think in such a way that, are we missing out on teacher development or teacher training? And then who is going to execute this curriculum at provincial level? So before I switch to Semisub, there are a few good questions. Although I'm not filtering those questions, but I'll be just sequencing those questions because a few of the questions are relevant to the part 3 of our discussion. So the first question is to both that Sattar Sohail Saab has asked that, were Dr. Fatma or Semisub formal part of the SNC development process?
No.
No. So none of the participants Dr. Fatma or Semisub were not part of this process. Then there's another good question which has been asked by Tasarrum Munir. I'm sorry for if I'm wrong in pronouncing it. So she says that the advocates of single national curriculum claim that the formation of SNC is an important first, small, slow step in a longer process of educational reforms. So, Madam, Dr. Fatma, I would request you to please comment on this. It's not a question, but it's another comment.
Can you please repeat it? Sorry, I just missed the second part of your question.
So the question is, it's not a question, it's just a comment. So it says that advocates of single national curriculum claim that the formation of SNC is an important first, small, slow step in a longer process of educational reforms.
Again, my comment is that things have been, handled from the middle rather than from the start. You see, I just explained in the beginning what the curriculum process is. So even if we say it's a slow, small step, the step needs to be contextualized. It needs to be, based on your societal needs. And again, something that I missed in the beginning, here I would like to address it. Is it based on any kinds of needs analysis? Any kind of evidence-based practices that has led us to develop this curriculum? You see, the principal, point in any curriculum development is that it is built on a needs assessment. You see, what was wrong with the 2006 curriculum that led us to develop this present curriculum? So I would like to, read those documents, and I will be very glad to go through those needs analysis, which has led to the formation of a single national curriculum. So, all these are all missing links. The single national curriculum should have been based on, a sizable data, which should have said that this is what we require. This is, we need to, tell children in grade 3 about trigraphs and digraphs and connotations and denotations and God knows what under the earth. So basically, till grade 5, as a, from a language perspective, a child basically will learn everything under the sun with respect to English language learning. So my question is that what is in store for grade 6, grade 7 till the time the child reaches university? So these are some basic things. So from the curriculum development perspective angle, this is the middle, not the first part that we have actually, which is in front of us. There were certain things which to me are not there and should have been. So maybe Semisub can add to this discussion, but that's my perspective.
I'll just add one. You see, it's children learn in their environment. These what I would call the natural endowments. Natural endowments of children vary. We all know that. A curriculum has to accommodate the child's situation. A child's situation in terms of parental literacy, in terms of the physical environment of the school, teacher capacity, health issues, poverty, the socioeconomic activities in that community. Well, you can't accommodate everyone, you need some diversity. Now, this is something that is also written in the curriculum framework that was developed by the federal ministry through a national process. When you say a single national curriculum, you are straight away assuming that this diversity does not exist. Every curriculum, and Dr. Fatma can correct me if I'm wrong, is built on a set of assumptions, and assumptions that are based on some sort of research. Now, those assumptions then lead to expectations of the curriculum. If those assumptions are there, then if there's a single national curriculum, it means that our assumptions for all children are the same. Result is that all children for whom those assumptions are not relevant will fail to meet the expectations of the curriculum and will fall off. And which is going to be in Pakistan, unfortunately, a very vast majority of children. And this has been our experience of past curricula also. Even though they were not for, as we said, for everyone, but even within the public sector school, we saw a lot of children falling off because the assumptions did not hold for a vast majority of children.
Right. So, Semisub, you have been asked a few questions in the comments also, but first I'll come to the point that how policies at federal and provincial levels shape curriculum building process. What are its limitations? and how these limitations affect the SNC. Like Dr. Fatma has already shared that there was no evidence, or there was no work carried out before designing this SNC, or whatever we call it. So there should have been some study or research on this, that what are the needs of the society, and are we calling all the stakeholders and then just asking them is the right process. So I would be asking that, is it right to say that implementation of single national curriculum shall be a challenge due to structural capacity issues in various provinces? And what has been the process of this curriculum development?
These are a lot of ideas in one question. I'll just
Okay,
go from
I'm
right at
sorry.
the beginning. So I'll get right at the beginning. We say the process of policy development and the connection between policy and curriculum, it varies. Unfortunately, we do not have a standard process for development of policy. We do not have a standardized process for development of curriculum. Even when the Curriculum Act was there, which was the 1976 Act, the Act was passed in 1976. It remained on the statute book till 2009 or 10 when the 18th Amendment came. No rules. The Act required a set of rules to be developed for development of the curriculum. Those rules were never made. So practically, curriculum review process became the whim of the powers that be at any point of time. It's a long discussion to go into those history. And after 18th Amendment, there has been a lot of other issues that have come into it. I don't want to go into those because those issues exist in every country. Pakistan is not unique in that sense. But at the end of the day, I'll come to the point that Dr. Fatma is raising. Where's the evidence? And evidence, I'm sure the 400 people around the table that Rafiq Saab talks about brought a lot of knowledge to the table. But did that knowledge exhaust all the issues? Was it enough? I mean, is it an alternative to diversified field research? And I'll again refer to the curriculum framework document of the government of Pakistan itself. I think it's one of the better documents that I've seen in education. And it talks of field research. It specifically talks of field research. And there are a few things, if I can find them for you. It looks at usually what you have to do in terms of curriculum. And this, I'm quoting the National Curriculum Framework. These are not my words. Level of development of the society, development needs of the learner, competencies of teachers in school, physical facilities and learning resources available in school. Considerations for formulation of curricular objectives can that they have written this. So how much of that can be accommodated? Because if you're saying a single national curriculum, we're saying that all these four things are same for every school, for every society. And then policy and curriculum, policy paper, a lot of these policy documents that have been made in the past, including those that I've been involved with, a lot of these just remain on the shelf. What actually gets implemented depends on a number of factors. Who's the development partner funding the specific implementation? Who's the political leader who wants a certain point coming in, a certain thing coming in? Somebody wants more schools. Somebody wants to look at some other aspects of teacher recruitment. Very few understand what quality and learning is. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, unfortunately.
Right. So we came to the end of part 2 of our webinar. So that one of the questions that is relevant to the part 3, but before starting the third session, I would ask that question that has been asked by Nimra Tariq, that how will the national curriculum be incorporated in the provinces since they already have their own frameworks? So our third session is the implementation of process of single national curriculum. So I would request any one of you to address this question.
I'll just clarify the question, and then provinces don't have their curriculum framework, and the failure of the provinces has been they had 9 to 10 years in which to develop capacity for curriculum development and to develop a curriculum. So personally, I'm in favor of 18th Amendment and devolution, while I agree with the national curriculum framework. But the ground reality is that the provinces, some of them may complain today of the national curriculum coming in, but they left that vacuum. They have not done anything on curriculum in the last 10 years, with very small exceptions in Sindh and one or two things somewhere else.
Right. So there's another question, Semisub, if you would like to answer that. Mr. Sami, if you say that bringing children to a uniform learning point must come later, what do you propose the right first policy implementation should be?
Okay, it's you see, is the point again? I'll come back to Dr. Fatma. Let's find out what's there on ground. You cannot have it's a diverse society. It's a diverse country. It's children will learn differently at different speeds. Maybe for some children, for where the household is completely illiterate, there's no home support, they only know one language, the starting point will be different. You can start converging them by grade 6 or 7, but till that point, you'll have to carry them differently. Dr. Fatma also mentioned the medium instruction and the language issue, which is a very, very huge and a very important discussion in this country. But I'll just give a small example. You see, you cannot start teaching a child a new language once the child reaches in school, because you're completely negating the first 4 or 5 years of the child's upbringing. And especially if you do that for a child in whose home and social environment that language is not spoken, you're just creating a mess. Children don't leave, we have this very big, huge misunderstanding that children can learn 5, 6 languages. Children can learn languages if they're spoken in their environment. Children cannot learn a language in a pressure situation of a school. So when we talk of convergence, we have to first find out where at least the broader set of children are, so that we meet the child where the child is, and then think of multiple curricular paths of them reaching minimum standards in a period of 12 years. One thing that a lot of people forget, schooling doesn't start and end in year 1. It starts, early childhood education goes up to grade 12. In these 12 to 14 years, you can do a lot with the child, provided you get hold of the child where the child is and take the child on the right path towards those standards. What we are assuming is that everybody is on the motorway. Everybody is not on the motorway. Somebody lives in Lorelei, somebody lives in Dera Ismail Khan. So you will have to first find how to bring everybody on the motorway, and these will be multiple paths that you will have to create. And that's why I think the single national curriculum will unfortunately negate the very objective it is trying to achieve, which is a uniform education system. Again, I don't know why we're looking at it right now with so much diversity in the country.
Yeah, and one more thing that because the provinces were part of the National Curriculum Council, so it is assumed that the provinces have been consulted and they would be implementing single national curriculum. I would like Dr. Fatma to answer this question that Safdar Sohail Sahab had asked, that would request them to comment on the quality of SNC development process. So, Dr. Fatma, how do you see the development process of single? You have already commented on the evidence-based practice and everything, but just your comment further on this.
I think I have talked fairly about this whole idea about the structural flaws that there may be, in the development of the process. You see, when we talk about a curriculum, we need to have a plan. For example, again, as a teacher educator, I need to have a plan on, for example, teacher training. Where is that plan? Who is the implementer of this curriculum? The teacher is the implementer of the curriculum. So there is a chapter on methodology, but for example, as a curriculum development person, you see there needs to be a plan of implementation. So who is going to train these teachers? And how are they going to be trained at these various diverse levels? You have schools from the top elite mediums to the low cost schools to the public schools. So what would be this entire process of teacher training? I just cannot swallow the pill of the word single, I'm sorry to say, because of the huge diversity that this country has. You see, we have taken examples. You see, in the curriculum document, it says that they have learned from the experiences of Singapore, Malaysia, England, and a few other countries. You see, it is not wrong to learn lessons from other countries. However, you need to see it in the perspective of your realities. Singapore is a country of over 5.6 million people, and it is not. I don't know how are we comparing that country with our country, where we have only 23 million children out of school. See,
Yeah,
at the
right.
same time, we are a country, we are a country which is enriched in linguistic diversity. You see, if you look at again research, we are host to about 70 languages. So how are we addressing that issue? In the curriculum document, there is you have made a curriculum on ECE, but I am more interested, as Semisub also pointed out, in which medium will this all be conducted? You see, you need to win over students. We are talking about educating millions of students and educating them on what platform. You see, this singularity is something which is just not appropriate for any educational process to continue. For example, let me give you a simple example from a small country like Finland. They devolve education to the level of municipality. Their municipal corporation are responsible for developing the curriculum targets. The national vision is there, the goals are there. However, at the municipal level, they decide as to what type of curriculum will be taught there. In a small country like Finland, and look at the diversity of our country, rich linguistic diversity, cultural diversity. So these are all issues which I just can't help thinking again and again when I look at the single national curriculum. So we
Yes,
need to
Dr.
address all these issues.
Yeah, so you have already answered my next question. That was the what are the don'ts of single national curriculum in the implementation process, and how it is going to affect small cultural and ethnic groups. So you have already answered that, but I would like your comment on because you already said that the curriculum should be fluid enough. It should not be hard, rigid framework. So we have out of school children which are not coming to school for past few years. They would be grown up, and I can see that the single national curriculum is quite it's very hard in its overall domain if I look at it. So how do you see that out of school children, which are 23 which are around 2.5 crore, I would say, uh, and how are you going to integrate those children, if you ever plan to bring them in the mainstream, or if you plan to make them a responsible citizens of this society?
You see, I would again go back to the national curriculum framework, which very clearly talks about inclusivity. And again, my question is that how is that inclusivity handled in the single national curriculum? I can hardly see that. So, for example, bringing out of school children to the mainstream, again, there is a missing link. What has the government thought about it? Again, with regard to children with special needs, again, the national curriculum framework, not only that, but your national education policy also states that you need to accommodate these children also in the mainstream. In other countries, countries like Malaysia and other countries like even small country like Finland, again, they have different streams which have their own well designed curricula which handles all these diversities. However, when we are looking at this single national curriculum, I'm afraid I have not in the curriculum I have not gone through any section which talks about inclusivity. It makes a passing remark on inclusivity, but with this copious document, I am not sure how are these out of school children going to benefit from it. There is a system in place which about non-formal education, where these children are accommodated, but then where is the link? Again, my question again and again goes back to the link. So are we accommodating these children through non-formal education or accelerated learning process and then bringing them in the mainstream? So the curriculum needs to answer these questions. We are making tall claims that we are not going to leave these children behind. So where is that bridge? How are they going to come into the mainstream? Is it through non-formal education? Is it through vocational training? So what is it that will bridge the gap between this single national curriculum and again another strand of non-formal education, vocational training? So these are all different compartments, and I fail to see the bridge among all these different areas.
Uh, Thank you very much, Dr. Fatma. Semisub, do you find that single national curriculum fits well in existing paradigm of education policy? And as already highlighted by Dr. Fatma, that there are quite large, quite major discrepancies in this, which should be worked out. So, what changes do you suggest? Like there are a lot of frictions in this. There are implementation problems. We have diversity across Pakistan, from Gilgit-Baltistan to Gwadar. How do you see the frictions, and what suggestions would you give National Curriculum Council to address those?
See, it's when you're looking at a curriculum or any education input, the question you need to ask yourself is how does it benefit the child? Now, I would ask this question of the national curriculum also. How would it benefit children whose basic endowments are not aligned with the assumption of the curriculum? So, single national curriculum, to me, we just talked about inclusiveness. We talked about out of school children. They are all important areas, very important areas. Inclusiveness, to some extent, if you go into the details of the learning outcomes, some of the objectives, they are covered. Non-formal education, I'll say, also is going to come in as a separate stream, although it would have been better if it had been aligned here. But the real problem of Pakistan is not, the bigger emergency of Pakistan is not 23 million children out of school. It is about the millions of children in school who do not learn anything. And that is a design problem. And that's a design problem of the curriculum and the textbooks that are developed under those curricula. Practically in more than 90% of the classrooms, either there is no learning or there's just some rote memorization. I'm not exaggerating. Fatma has been working in this sector for a long time. There are other evidences available. So we a lot of time we blame the teachers. I'm not saying we have very highly competent teachers, but given the design, given the way we develop our textbooks and the way we design our curriculum, we fail good and bad teachers equally. You see, children come from different backgrounds. You give me that textbook, you take that textbook into a classroom with your background and you mashallah have done Harvard and BS. I can assure you there are many classrooms where you will fail if you are just asked to stick to that textbook and complete the course. That is something that needs to be rectified before we start looking at teacher competency and teacher improvement. Or we do that in parallel. If we want teachers to align to a curriculum which is irrelevant to the classroom reality, we are further distorting the system. We're not achieving anything.
Right. So we come to the end of our third session. There are a few interesting comments also. One is that who is responsible for the incompetency that we couldn't develop curriculum after 2006. So I would just request panelists to just highlight that on average, after how much time the curriculum should be revised, although curriculum should be sustainable and cyclic, but what do you think, what is the standard or recommended time frame for that?
You see, as I pointed out earlier, a curriculum is a fluid document. A curriculum goes through a continuous process of revision every time a teacher goes in the classroom and brings back the knowledge, and that knowledge needs to be fed into the system for us to learn lessons and revise accordingly. You see, it is unlikely that a curriculum stays at the same spot for several years. This is something which research does not comply with. A curriculum goes through a constant process of revision and through different stakeholders, through the students, through the teachers, through the administration, through the policy makers. So, for example, let me give you a very small example, from university. After every semester, we take stock of what we taught, and we take stock from the students, from the teachers, and then we bring the desirable changes and from the lessons that we have learned. So this is again something that we need to think at. We need to devise systems in which there is a rapid response to the issues. For example, Semisub has highlighted so many issues. Where are those issues being fed? So again, the structural flaws are several. simple question is that how seriously, for example, do we take the profession of teaching itself? How many of us become teachers by design? So, this again is part of the problem. When you become a teacher by design, you will look into these things yourself, so rather than being told what to do. So, this is just tip of the problem that I am talking about. There are so many others for which we can, conduct maybe another session, but these are issues to be thought about. So coming back to your question, you do not wait for years. You do it every time. For example, I tell my students that please go on reflecting as you teach, which is called reflection on action, which is food for thought, for reflection, for action later on. And that is exactly how curricula are reformed, how curricula are revised on the basis of this is field research, this is what we call action research. So you see, all we need to do is to professionalize teaching in Pakistan, professionalize the concept of education in Pakistan. We need to learn from experiences, and that is why from the very beginning, I am harping on the same tune: evidence, research. So that, because research informs your practice. The whole purpose of research in our society is to inform your practice, which I'm afraid is not happening at the moment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatma Dar and Semisub. I'm thankful that you have touched upon some very important technical questions which needs to be addressed by, I think, the National Curriculum Council, or these observations are, I believe, that coming from the academic point of view and from the experience of a policy professional, these are valid. And I would say that this webinar has been helpful not only for me, my own personal growth, but also I hope that for all the participants who have been listening. I thank you once again. And for the audience, this was the first webinar in the series. We shall continue to do webinars on the details of single national curriculum and in general education policies in Pakistan. Today's webinar focused on the general outlay of SNC and its implementation and development process. Next webinar shall be more focused on specific elements of single national curriculum. With this, I thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.